Hello everyone, welcome to English with Evelyn. Today we'll study Nelson Mandela, A Long Walk to Freedom. This lesson is a part of First Flight, which is class 10 NCRT reader. And let us begin quickly with the lesson. So, this lesson is an extract from Nelson Mandela's autobiographical book by the same name, Nelson Mandela, A Long Walk to Freedom. This is the name of his autobiography as well. और इस बुक में नेल्सन मंडेला ने अपनी जर्नी को ट्रेस किया है राइट फ्रॉम चाइल्डहुड टू द टाइम व्हेन he realized his dream of forming a democratic government in South Africa. It also discusses apartheid in South Africa. Also, although he doesn't give the grim details, okay, those details are there in the book, but it's not there in the extract. But yes, in this extract, he talks about how he dealt with this evolving idea of freedom, with this realization, the slow realization that they were not truly free in their own country, and how he began his struggle and how where his struggle landed him, what were the problems that he faced, and eventually, not just problems faced by him but by others also, and how they eventually realized their dream of forming a democratically elected government. Now, we all know who Nelson Mandela is. He was the first South African president to be elected in a fully representative democratic election. He was trained as an attorney, a lawyer, and he formed the Youth League of the African National Congress in 1944. Then in 1961, he abandoned peaceful protest and he became the head of ANC's new military wing, where they would take actions involving arms and weapon and attacks. Now, he was sentenced to life imprisonment in 1964. So, he came to symbolize black political aspirations, and he was named the head of the ANC after his release on February 11, 1990. And he has been given the Nobel Peace Prize as well. Now, what is apartheid? Apartheid means the policy that was adopted by the settlers, the white settlers, in order to control the various tribes in South Africa. Now, during apartheid, the black inhabitants, who were the natives, they enjoyed restricted freedom. They did not enjoy freedom at all, in fact. And the rights that were freely given to the white people were not given to them. So Nelson Mandela and many others like him, and he takes the names in the extract as well, they fought against this system, and finally, eventually, they overturned this and they were successful in forming the democratically elected government. Now, this picture is from the day of the inaugural ceremony of the newly elected government. He begins the description, the lesson with this. This is a picture of the installation and the swearing in ceremony of Nelson Mandela and the two deputy presidents. He addressed the guests and he gave a very powerful address where he promised to provide great hope and glory to the newborn freedom. He also said that now we are going to create a society that people would feel proud of. He knew that people will not forget the wounds that apartheid had inflicted on them, but they will never tolerate any kind of oppression, nor will they experience any kind of oppression of one by the other. Now, after the swearing in ceremony and after his speech, there was this a show of loyalty by the armed forces, where the generals They saluted him, and he felt a pang, when he saw these people, because their chests were decorated, on their uniforms were the medals given to them for their acts of bravery in the past. And he said that I could not help but remember that a few years ago, they would not have saluted me, but they would have arrested me. And he also says that the two national anthems were played on that day, the one of the old republic, and the one that was the national anthem that was chosen by the revolutionaries. And he says that there will be a day when the whites and the blacks will be able to sing each other's national anthems. Then he also thinks about the past. He traces the history of the political developments. He talks about the white people in South Africa who got together and they developed a system of racial domination against the blacks. And he says this resulted in the formation of a cruel society, a system that was based on discrimination. And he says that this system has been demolished forever. A new system based on equal rights for all has been developed. And he also talks about the sacrifices made by many people. And he says that I am just a face, I am just a sum total of all those people who have fought. They are not fortunate enough to have been here or to have been alive to see this day, but I am the sum total of all their efforts, of their sacrifices. And he says that I am where that dignified line has ended, and I'm also the beginning of that line. What he means that the struggle for freedom is over, and I am the last flag bearer, the torch bearer of that. And I'm also the first torch bearer of the new struggle for maintaining and developing this democracy. And so he calls in himself, he says that I'm at the cusp of things, I'm the last person, and that line, it ends and begins with me. Now, after this, he talks about how he was initiated into this struggle for freedom. So, he begins by saying that every man has two obligations. One obligation is towards his society, the other obligation is towards his family, towards his parents, his family, his children. So, he says that in South Africa, when there was oppression of the white, these obligations could not be easily fulfilled, because he says that if one person of one tried to fulfill the obligations towards the society, what was the obligation towards the society in those days? So this obligation was getting rid of the anarchist government, the separatist government, and to bring about democracy, to bring about equality. So, if you fought for that, you were not able to fulfill your obligations as a family man. And if you just thought about your family, and you just provided for your family, and just ensured that your family had bread to eat and they were safe and secure, then you would not be doing the duty that you owed to your country or to the society. So, he calls these twin obligations. और ये बहुत common question है, what are the twin obligations that he talks about, and why does he say that in an oppressive society, under an oppressive government, people could not fulfill the twin obligations? तो ये उसका आंसर है. फिर the policy of apartheid and what were the consequences. He says that the system that separated the people on the basis of their race, it gave a lot of pain to the African people. And he says that rightly, that it's going to take a long time for people to forget the harm that was done to them, the injuries that were given to them, not only on their bodies but also on their souls by the system. But he says that this system also had an unintended consequence. एक ऐसी भी चीज़ हुई थी एज अ रिजल्ट ऑफ दिस सिस्टम, जो कि इंटेंशन तो नहीं था कि ऐसा हो, लेकिन वो हो गया. तो क्या था? People of great wisdom, courage and generosity also came out of this system. If there had been no oppression, great people would not have had to fight against the oppression. तो उनकी ग्रेटनेस का पता ही नहीं चलता. इनफैक्ट लोगों को खुद को अपने स्ट्रेंथ का, अपनी करेज का, अपनी ग्रेटनेस का कब पता चलता है? व्हेन दे हैव टू फाइट अगेंस्ट समथिंग. Okay, like it is said in nature, everything, only any characteristic that you have, or even the animals have, it's only because they have to survive, they have to fight against all odds. Otherwise they would not have those qualities. Likewise, the same thing happens, the same laws of nature can be seen everywhere, even in a man-made society. जहाँ पे ऑपरेशन है, तो वहाँ पे लोग, common man, out of those common men will come up people who will be extraordinary, and they will fight against that system. So he says, people say that Africa is full of gems, but he says that these people, these great men, okay, they are the true gems of my country. Such people are the greatest wealth of a country. He says that out of oppression were born the depth of oppression brought out the heights of character in these people. This is another important part from where questions are asked. Now, how did Nelson Mandela get involved, and how did he get motivated to fight for the freedom of his country? Now, the realization of slavery, that he realized that, oh, we are slaves, and the desire for freedom, how did that happen? It did not happen overnight. So he tells us how this idea of freedom evolved, okay, and how as he grew up, he realized, how he and his people and anyone who looked like him, they are not considered as equal. So he says that he became, from a law-abiding attorney, he became a criminal in the eyes of the law. How did this happen? He says, I was not born with a hunger to be free. I was born free. Free in every way that I could know. It was only when I began to learn that my boyhood freedom was an illusion that half the quotation is missing from here, that I realized that the hunger for freedom began to take roots in me, in my heart. Matlab, see, when he was a young boy, he says he was free to ride the broad backs of the buffaloes, free to roast mealies, and he used to play around his mother's hut. So those were the days when he was truly free. Okay, and as a child he thought that this is what freedom is. You're free to do all of this as long as you do not break the laws of your tribe and you do not break the laws of God, then you are free. It's only when he grew up, he realized that he could not read the books that he wanted to read. He could not roam about at night. So he wanted those freedoms. That was a selfish idea of freedom, not because he was a selfish person, but because he was not mature enough to understand that this limited freedom is not what you call freedom. Freedom is absolute. Anything which has a, a shackle on it is not free, right? So as a young student, he in Johannesburg, he realized that it's not just he but everyone else who looked like him is uh, is not free. He came to know that. So he says that it was this desire for the freedom of my people to live their lives with dignity and self respect that animated my life. Now, this became the purpose of his life. He said, I realize that I'm not, I'm not free till everyone who looked like me is free. And the chains on any one of them are the chains on me. So this is what he's realized. And so he says that it was this desire for freedom that now it has fueled my life. This is what I wanted to do. And he also gives a very important statement here. He says that I'm not truly free if I'm taking away someone else's freedom. It's a very important quotation that if you are taking someone else's freedom, then you're not truly free, because humanity does not give you the freedom to do this. And if you're doing this, then you are a slave of anger, you are a slave of your bias, you are a slave of your prejudices. So you cannot, if you cannot claim to be free if you are taking away someone else's liberty and freedom, because if the one who is enslaved, it's very clear, जिसके ऊपर बेड़ियां हैं, जिसके ऊपर हथकड़ियां हैं, वो तो क्लियर ही है कि ये तो फ्री है ही नहीं. लेकिन he says there are these mental shackles also, mental chains also, which um, uh, which take away the freedom of the oppressor. The oppressor is also not free because he is in the chains. He is tied by the chains. He is a captive of his own hatred. He is tied by the chains of hatred. So the oppressor and the oppressed, जो oppress करने वाला है ना, जो किसी को टॉर्चर करता है या ऑप्रेस करता है, किसी की फ्रीडम लेता है, वो भी उतना ही इज ऑल्सो रॉब्ड ऑफ हिज ह्यूमैनिटी. ही इज ऑल्सो नॉट अ कंप्लीट ह्यूमन. ही इज नॉट the right definition of what a human being is, as the oppressed is not. The oppressed is also not truly a human. You're not giving him the life of a dignified human being if you're taking away his humanity, his freedom. This quotation we have done. This also I have explained very clearly, but you can read this. These questions are framed from these parts of the lesson, and see here, this one. I did not in the beginning choose to place my people above my family. See, everyone thinks of their family first, but you really have to achieve a greater height of greatness and selflessness to be able to think about the people at large and not just about your family. Then this one we've just done. A man who takes away another man's freedom is a prisoner of hatred. He is locked behind the bars of prejudice and narrow-mindedness. So Nelson Mandela passed away in 2013, and he said that this is not a part of the lesson, but he said it's a beautiful quote that I found, so I've included this. When a man has done what he considers to be his duty to his people and his country, he can rest in peace. I believe I have made that effort, and that is therefore why I will sleep the for eternity. Another quotation by him. And another very important quotation. Man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never be extinguished. What he means by this is, he said that um, when he was in prison and when they were driven to the, to their limits, he says that there is only one thing that gave him courage, that gave him the hope that they are fighting for the right thing. And what was that thing? It was a flicker, okay, or just a glimpse of pity in the eyes of the prison guards. The prison guards were trained to be brutal, to be cruel, okay, beyond your imagination. So if he could see a hope, if he could see a glimpse of pity in the eyes of any of the prison guards, that gave him hope that he is fighting for the right thing and that there is still hope for humanity. This man who is trained, whose job is to, torture other people, if he can, for even a microsecond, show or even feel pity, then I'm fighting for the right thing, and that gave him courage. So he says that we are not born with hatred for anyone or any class or any society or any religion. He says it is taught. So he says that if hatred can be taught, so can love be taught. And so man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden, but it can never be extinguished. And then there is one more important quotation, which where he says that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. That means if someone is courageous, it's not because they are not afraid. They are afraid, but they overcome that fear. They have a goal which helps them to overcome that fear. That is also one important quote on which you may be asked to write an answer. These are the quotes that I have already explained, but I liked them, so I have added these images here. This also I have explained already. So, coming to the conclusion of the lesson. So, it can be inferred, it can be concluded from this lesson that any person can reach heights irrespective of their race or caste or the class that they come from. So, nobody should be discriminated against on any basis. This chapter talks about Mandela's journey, his struggle, okay, and from his speech about people who had joined him in his struggle and who went before him, the way he talks about them, the respect that he gives them. It tells us about the long chain of people, long list of people who have worked or who had sacrificed their lives for the cause of the country. And once again we come to know about apartheid and the brutal practice that it was. Okay, so I hope you all have enjoyed the lesson. Please feel free to visit other videos and go through other important lessons of class 10 as well. There are also a lot of other playlists where you can visit grammar lessons. You can also watch videos on a lot of writing skills, and also on there's a playlist on in for the lessons of class 9, 11, and I think 12 as well. All right, so I hope you have liked the video. Please keep visiting the channel. Bye bye.